Hey, what's up, family? It's Curt from Triad Hip Hop Podcast, and I just want to talk about a subject that's been in the news a lot recently. It's about a gentleman named Rodney Reed. This man has been sentenced to death row and has been on death row for a long time. And so, basically, what's happening is, well, let me read the backstory of the situation. Let me read about him. So Rodney Reed, when you look him up online, it tells you a little bit about his backstory. It says Rodney Reed is an American convicted murderer who was sentenced to death for the abduction, rape, and strangulation of Stacey Stites in the town of Bastrop, Texas, on April 23rd, 1996. He's been on Texas's death row since May of 1998. So basically, this lady, Stacey Stites, was found early in the wee hours of the morning, maybe between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., somewhere in that area. I think it was I want to say maybe 3, well, I'm not sure. But the time of death is a little bit different. So basically, they found her dead, found out she had been, had sex with somebody right before she died, was strangled, and ultimately killed. And so at first they were looking at her husband because she was married. And so they questioned him, but then they found out there was this other guy, Rodney Reed, who was caught up with her as well. And so basically what happened was her and her husband were in kind of a rocky relationship. And so she was kind of messing around on the side with Rodney Reed. And so they didn't know that. All they knew was when they did forensics, they found a tiny bit of Rodney Reed's semen inside of her. There were I want to say 3 spermatozoas in there, 3. And each one of them had no tail. So that tells you how old they were and how low the amount was. So basically, when a man ejaculates, obviously there's millions upon millions of sperm that come out. So they found 3 and that were pretty much dead with no tail on them. And so, but they still convicted Rodney Reed of this murder. And so he was sitting on death row since 1998 and was finally scheduled to be executed November 20th of this year. And at the last minute, his execution got halted because he's been fighting to get them to go back and look at the evidence, basically saying, look, I know this looks bad, but I promise you it wasn't me. You know what I mean? Yeah, he admits, I was messing with her. We had a little relationship, but whatever sex we had was consensual. There was no rape, and I didn't do anything to harm this lady. So, basically people found out about the case and started rallying around him. A lot of famous people stepped in and started helping him plead his case. And so they finally got a judge to hold the execution just days before he was supposed to be executed. I mean, this was November 20th. It's just the 23rd now. So just maybe a couple of days before the execution, they agreed to cancel it and have I guess they're going to have a retrial. So basically, what ended up, what's happening is there's a lot of ups and downs about whether or not he's guilty or not, because some people are saying he looks more guilty because he's had other things in his past. He was convicted, or accused, I should say. He was accused of rape before that with a minor, somebody who was supposed to be 14 or something like that. And, they're trying to say he had a tumultuous past. And so that's what obviously makes him the obvious one who did this. And so then that kind of, held him in there. But he's always pleading on his own behalf, saying, hey, you can do all the DNA tests you want. Trust me, my DNA was not the one that you would have found at the murder scene and all that, because I wasn't there. So the story goes that the night that she died, she was working at a place where she had to be there like around 4 o'clock in the morning. So she left her house around maybe 3:30. And then her body was found because she never showed up to work. So obviously people start questioning. And so they eventually find her body in the early hours, I guess, of the morning. I'm not sure what the time was, but like I said, they eventually found her body. And her husband was like, yeah, all I know is she was home and she left to go to work. And next thing I know, she's dead. So whoever it was took her body, a ways away and just dumped the body somewhere and left it for dead. But now that they've really been going back to check all the facts and re-examine the case, they're finding out that she didn't really die early that morning. She would have died probably 12 hours before that, sometime earlier in that same day. And so a lot more evidence is starting to point to her husband, because her husband did admit that, yeah, she was with me until she went to work. She was with me all day, and then all of a sudden she went to work, and next thing I know, I didn't see her again. She was dead. So that the evidence is pointing more to him now, because obviously forensics are proving that she was dead earlier that day, and then later on in the wee hours of the morning taken somewhere and the body got dumped. So it's a very interesting case, and it's really been hitting the headlines here lately. I really, based on what I see, I really feel like the man is innocent, because I've watched documentaries where they've gone back and examined everything, and now it's just a matter of pleading the case for a new judge. So, some of you might be familiar with the story, so please weigh in, because I would love to hear your thoughts on how you feel. Some people, I've heard there's a celebrity female named Amanda Seales, and she said she was rallying behind him at first, but then she changed her position, saying that basically she felt like, nah, they lied because they withheld the fact that he had been convicted accused of rape and all this other stuff in his past before this happened. So in her mind, if he had a track record of being accused of something before, this must be true now. You know what I mean? Why would this just keep happening to him? Does he have a string of bad luck? You know what I mean? So, I get it, but I don't, that's not enough for me to convict somebody, even if they were accused in the past of something similar. Now, another thing is, supposedly this one that was the 14-year-old girl, eventually, years later, finds some of Rodney Reed's family. After he gets put in jail, she found some of his family, showed up at their doorstep and said, hey, I want to clear my conscience because I feel really bad, but I lied when I said that he, raped me and assaulted me, or whatever it was that he supposedly did. So she basically admitted to them, and then they lost track of her after that, because they said that she seemed like she had been going through some things in her life, like maybe she was homeless and probably had turned into streets and drugs and things like that. So they really didn't have a way to keep up with her. So now they're trying to locate her again so that we can get proof that, hey, remember you told us you lied about that, blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be a little tough, but I don't see why they would lie about something like that. You know what I mean? The family would have no reason to say that, knowing that this lady could show up at any time and say, hell no, I never said that. You know what I mean? They wouldn't go on national TV and say, hey, this is what she told us. But that's what they've been collecting, that type of evidence over the years, trying to help exonerate their family member. So, it's one of those cases, man. It's got a lot going on. And, you know, I really feel like, you know, I hope he gets a fair trial because, I mean, you got to think about that, man. I mean, to be on death row for 21 years and not only that, but just knowing that your date of execution, the day you die, can be any minute now. You know what I mean? They can come to you at any minute and say, hey, you know, we finally got your death day. Come on, it's time to go. You know what I mean? But luckily, because the system, I guess, is so backed up, he had to just sit there in prison year after year after year. So, you know, right now they're waiting to do his second trial and with a new judge and, you know, probably a new jury, I'm sure, whole new jury and all that. But I really hope that you guys will check out the documentary. If you look it up on YouTube, you know, you'll see at least 2 documentaries where they, you know, go into depth about all the evidence, you know, for him and, you know, whatever they consider to be against him. But based on what I've heard, everything that supports his case of not being the one that did anything to her seems to be the truth. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and play a judge and jury and try to break it all down to you. That's not my job. If you really want to know, you need to go do your homework. But based on what I've seen, you know, that's what I feel. I feel like he is innocent. And I think that the way it seems to have played out, the husband probably found out that they were sleeping together and decided, oh, okay, that's what's going to happen. You messing around with this guy over here. You know, now it is a black and white case. I will say that shouldn't really play much part in it, but it's possibly an element to, you know, what made the husband, you know, kill this woman. I'm not sure if the husband did it, but if he did, that could have played a part in it, because another element to it is the husband was a police officer, a brand new police officer. So he was kind of in that brotherhood. And, you know, a lot of times when cops do dirty shit, they in that brotherhood where, you know, you got my back, I got yours, you know, don't tell nobody. So supposedly, you know, the cop husband, you know, he supposedly there's evidence against him that somebody was there from the police force, from what I understand, who, you know, can prove that he did it. And, you know, it's going to play out in court. But the husband is actually another thing that goes against the husband. He's currently in prison right now because after that relationship with Stacey Stites, once she passed away, years later, he gets with another chick and assaults her. And he has a background of kidnap and all this other kind of stuff. The husband, the cop. So, you know, years later, he goes to jail for assaulting another female. And so she's another character witness for this whole thing. So it's a lot going on. You know, I really want some feedback. So please tell me how y'all feel. You know, check out the story. Find out for yourself, because it's a lot going on, man. And I mean, that's got to be so stressful, man, to be sitting on death row knowing you could just die any day at somebody's snap of a finger. Just, you know, oh, we got some space now. Come on. It's your time. It's really sad, man. So, you know, I just pray that the truth comes out. You know, I mean, if the man is guilty, then let him be found guilty. But if he's innocent, then let him be found innocent, because nobody deserves to die for something that they didn't do. And based on the evidence I've heard, like I said, it sounds more like he's innocent. Rodney Reed, I mean, you know, and it sounds more like the husband is guilty. But, you know, do your own homework, come to your own conclusion, and let's chop it up. You know what I mean? Because it could be you, it could be somebody you know. And, you know, it's not enough to say, well, you know, I know him, I've known him so long, you know, he's a good guy, he would never do this. That doesn't hold up in court. What they look for is the facts. They look for evidence, you know what I mean? What's going to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that you did or did not do it. So check it out for yourself. Look it up on the internet and let's chop it up. You know what I mean? And let's have a little conversation about it. You know what I mean? Tell me what y'all think. So for Try It Hip Hop Podcast, this your man, Curt, dog. And let's talk about it. Peace.
Just 5 days before Rodney Reed was scheduled to go to the death chamber, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals stepped in and spared Reed's life. Reed's mother, Sandra Reed, tells CBS Austin she was more than relieved when she learned her son would live longer than she thought the justice system would allow.
And I am so happy. I am one happy, happy mother.
Reed has served more than 2 decades in prison for the 1996 rape and murder of Stacey Stites. He was sentenced to death, but now the appeals court says Reed's case should be re-examined by the Bastrop County Trial Court, citing the state's suppression of evidence that would have favored Reed, false testimony, and the question of Reed's innocence.
We had witnesses that were intimidated. Now it's a new day. 20 years or more have passed. Things are changing, and I think this case will bring about a change. The truth will and shall set him free.